Many South Africans heard President Cyril Ramaphosa's Youth Day speech yesterday on National Youth Day. However, not all of them are convinced. Some feel that it's an annual talk shop of promises, and others, some experts among them, also feel that in order to understand youth issues, the youth need to be spoken to and not spoken for. So today we have young people to speak about their everyday challenges and also to react to the President's speech yesterday. Athenkosi Dzingwe is a young university graduate, and Kristal Duncan-Williams is the project lead at Youth Capital, which is a youth-led advocacy campaign to reduce youth unemployment. Athenkosi and Kristal, thanks to both of you for joining us, and welcome to Morning Live.
Good morning, Sakina.
Now,
good morning, Sakina. Thank you for welcoming us.
You're most welcome. Athenkosi, let me just start with you then. So yesterday, the country commemorated Youth Day. What did it feel like for you yesterday? What was your experience?
For yesterday's youth commemoration, it was a bit of an odd experience for me. I mean, considering the years of our democracy, and considering the unemployment rate that we have today, I don't think there's a need to commemorate Youth Day today because of the unemployment crisis we have in the country. I think the government needs to sponsor a flood of opportunities for young people, and then allow young people to succeed in those opportunities. Then we can have something to celebrate after. But for now, I don't think it's the right time for us as the young people, and also for the government, for that matter, to celebrate the Youth Day. Yes, I can understand the history, the heritage behind the Youth Day, but currently there's no need for celebration. What we need now is opportunities that will drive solutions for our livelihood as young people to change. Then we can have a meaningful celebration and commemoration after that.
But just in terms of that, Athenkosi, so the youth of 1976 basically made sure that they took up the cudgels to have their own voices heard in the fight for the liberation of this country. Theirs was against the education system first and foremost, and of course then by extension, yes, addressing other issues in South Africa at the time. So in that regard, how important do you think a day like Youth Day is in commemorating and remembering the struggle of young people?
It's very important, Sakina, that young people remember and commemorate June 16, right? That's very important. That's a history. That's a historical fact that we have. But currently now, we have so many problems as young people. Unemployment rate is one of those problems. And it's a priority for us as young people because we are not able to make a meaningful living because we are out of jobs. For instance, myself, I'm a graduate, but I'm struggling to find even a permanent job. I'm jumping from internship to another internship. There's no consistency. God, I don't think there's a need for us as young people to celebrate now, but we can celebrate later on after the government has provided us opportunities that we can succeed upon, then celebrate. For example, 1976 generation fought for a better education. I was part of the Fees Must Fall generation that fought for free entrance to university. That has not materialized. That has not been realized by the government. Yes, they made a grandstanding for me to say education fees will be dropped at universities, but we don't see that. Instead, they continue to use even NEFSAs to make it as a bridge that will allow students to get in there. But we know that not all students are supported by NEFSAs, and there are roadblocks even there to apply for acceptance to NEFSAs so that you can be able to get entrance to a university. So from where I'm standing, Sakina, and I think for most of young people in South Africa today, they will tell you that there's nothing to celebrate. There's nothing to celebrate now. We need opportunity in those opportunities, then succeed.
Kristal, what does Youth Day mean to you? And I'll talk to you about unemployment in just a minute. But firstly, what does it mean to you?
I think, in the time that Youth Capital has been around, so we've had 4 youth days now in our short-lived existence. And I think every year I'm just left with a feeling of, that the decision makers are so disconnected from young people. We hear the president's speech, and there's some good stuff in there. But there's a line that stuck with me. I think every year there's a line that he says that I just think, oh, this is so disconnected from young people. The line yesterday was that young people must go for the opportunities that the government puts out there. And that is to oversimplify, to say that the reason young people don't have jobs is because they aren't going for it. And that is just unequivocally untrue. Young people are doing the hardest. They are trying everything. I know that you had Sam Flance on yesterday with a documentary. I've been trying 8 years without a job. And, if you watch that documentary, young people are just knocking on doors. So they are going for the opportunities. It's us that are failing them. It's the system that's failing them. And I feel like often the rhetoric on Youth Day is like, young people, if you're resilient enough, if you try hard enough, you can succeed. And we are selling young people a lie, because that's just not the reality in South Africa today.
So from yesterday with Sam Flance, as you say, Athenkosi mentions it, and every young person mentions it, the issue of unemployment. And you, of course, Kristal, head up an advocacy group. Let's talk about the reality of youth unemployment and what exactly are some of the obstacles that youth come up against.
So I think the biggest misconception that South Africans face is that they think that youth unemployment starts when young people finish studying and they start looking for a job. But the truth is it starts long before that. Young people are not supported. They're not given career guidance. That comes up as a big one. So, they study something and then they realize that there aren't any jobs, or they study through a technical vocational training college and there's no practical experience available for them, so they can't complete the practical components of their degree, and so they study for years without being able to complete a qualification, and then they step into looking for work and they can't afford to look for work. Our latest survey shows that 8 in 10 young people have to choose between looking for work or buying food that day. These are the realities that young people face. And then they show up for the government opportunities that exist, and these opportunities should, when crafted well, give young people transferable skills and reference letters that set them up to be able to grab onto a next opportunity. And that doesn't always materialize. We also have young people who are told, be entrepreneurs, start a business. And so many people young people have a hustle. But if you've never been employed and you don't have any business mentors, it's no surprise that the businesses fail. So we really need to create these support mechanisms and build resilient systems to support young people and meet them where they are. And as you say, talk to young people. Young people are tired of being spoken for, of being spoken at, having decisions made by the older generation who have no idea what the realities are for young people today in 2022. And I think we really need to create pipelines and channels for the voices of youth to be amplified and heard at government level.
So that's a very interesting point. Athenkosi, if you would like to pick up on that, because, we had a question yesterday as our question of the day, asking that very question about absorbing young people into the decision-making processes, the narratives that set the agenda, and of course also being incorporated into government structures. So, Athenkosi, you said earlier that you are basically moving from one internship to the next. I don't know if you were referring to yourself specifically or youth in general, but let's talk about that. And how can government bring young people in a meaningful way to make a contribution? Because Kristal says government is none the wiser about what young people are actually dealing with.
Oh, okay. Second, on your first part of your conversation there, what I mean is that myself included, right? I've been jumping, as you say, but the government, those presidential internships that they were launched since the COVID, they are not sustainable. And the internships and PWPs that were launched before COVID, they are not. We need something that is going to be sustainable for us, we need permanent jobs. We don't need internships anymore because we've got experiences, most of us. So we need permanent jobs so that we can also become taxpayers and grow the South African economy. So we welcome what the president has said yesterday, part of it, about launching, increasing the presidential stimulus packages. But we need that to be permanent. He needs to tell the companies that after the program, absorb the students or the youth that you've been recruited in the program, permanent positions in the company.
Right.
So that when the next being absorbed,
Athenkosi, we just losing you slightly there. The connection not very steady. But I see you back now. You're moving again. So
yeah.
If you can just maybe just conclude that point for us.
Oh, so I was saying we need sustainable jobs that are going to sustain us, not internships, because internships, they are not sustainable. Because after 12 months, the companies ditch you out, and then you're back to square one. Then the next group comes in, they are being recruited, 12 months ends, they are ditched out. So it's not permanent, it's not sustainable. We can't live on handout. We need permanent jobs that will allow us to become taxpayers, to also become meaningful citizens that contribute to the growth and development of the country and of the economy.
So, Kristal, Athenkosi, you heard him there, says we need permanent jobs. The narrative that we hear is there are no jobs. So what is the solution here?
So Sakina, I think the economy, we need some drastic reforms there. Nobody can argue that point. But, what we think at Youth Capital is really a source of serious untapped potential is the SMME market, so your small to medium enterprises. We believe that a lot of these big government interventions have been targeted at big business and at government themselves to create employment. And obviously there's a finite number of jobs that can be created in any of those spaces. But there are thousands of small to medium enterprises across the country. And I don't think we've spent enough time investing in policy and understanding those business owners and what their needs are. Because as much as we understand a young employer, we need to understand what the businesses that we want to hire them also need from these young people. And so I think we need to create a conversation between the two sides. What do small businesses need to enable them to support and hire a young person? Because in a small business, I think it's more likely that a young person will get guidance and mentorship and to be able to create a career path for themselves where there's more longevity. Then, in a big corporate, there's a short window, as Athenkosi says, and then they get booted out at the end. So I think this is really where the missed opportunities are. And we need to look at the current tax incentives that government has for businesses and how small businesses can access those if we want to create more employment opportunities that are more sustainable for young people.
So, Athenkosi, as things stand right now, the struggle for youth, very real. Too many young people in this country unemployed. But the Auditor General, in speaking about the audit report, the outcomes on municipal finances, spoke about active citizenry, because that's where South Africa is at right now. So what do you think the youth should be doing in order to help themselves out of this problem?
I think, Sakina, the youth should be doing a lot more as well. For example, to start with, they need to make sure for the learners in high school, they need to make sure they finish their matric, right? They need to also make sure that they qualify for university. Then after university, they need to also make sure whilst in the process of being a student, they find volunteerism or non-paying or paying internships that will train them for the corporate world, because we know in university you get to be taught theory, then you need also practical for your field, or in a technical you need to also go do your in-service training. So I think the youth needs to take those opportunities, right, into consideration and make sure they ace them, right, so that when the government fails us again, we know that we've done our part. It's up to the government now to finish the other part so that we can have a sustainable chain of development in terms of youth development and skills.
Athenkosi frozen on us again there. But Kristal, just your final word in terms of what can government do better? How can government come to the party to assist young people and drastically reduce those unemployment rates?
I think government needs to make more intentional means for hearing from young people and what their struggles are. I think the one good thing the president said yesterday is the removal of red tape. We know there's all these cumbersome certification processes to apply for government jobs that cost young people money. And I think that was a really great step forward. So I think another thing that the government needs to do is be more self-reflective. There aren't enough annual reports put forward on progress against youth interventions. And I know that the State of the Nation dashboard is live now. And I really hope that the government will continue to put forward the numbers there, not just the number of opportunities created, but to Athenkosi's point, what happens when those short-term internships end? How many of those young people in those programs go forward onto another earning or learning opportunity? I think we'd like to see those numbers reported. And to the young people out there, let's keep holding government accountable, not just when there's a youth day, not just when there's a policy up for discussion, but on a daily basis, on a quarterly basis, on a yearly basis, to ask government, what has been your progress against the promises you've made to young people?
And for those approaching the age of 35, Athenkosi, the window is closing.
Yeah, most definitely. Like from yesterday's launch of the film, I've been trying 8 years. Most of the youth there in that documentary, they are 35 and above. So what happens to them now? They are over the age group of youth, and they are still unemployed. They were still unemployed before they got 35. They are now after 35 years. What happened? Are they going to live on social grants for the rest of their life? So the government needs to now think who is young, who is a young person, who still needs to be assisted after being a young person, according to the government age group. So we also need to look into that and see, because there's also a lot of people after that, the age group, who are still unemployed because they are considered to be old. So what happens to them?
Well, Athenkosi and Kristal, that's where we're going to leave it. But thank you so much. And I think what this highlights is, young people who are there, who are capable, who are educated, and yet struggling in a system. And we need to really have serious conversations, not just on Youth Day, but to speak about all the issues surrounding this particular matter. Some time ago, we spoke about the skills mismatch with regard to unemployed graduates, and of course, just the unacceptably high rate of unemployment among young people. But that's where we're going to leave today's conversation.